Oh, good morning to you one and all. Happy Sunday. The joys of family church with special guests, and I'm running around like my Petaluma chicken with my head cut off. It's just wonderful. I get the great joy today of being your welcomer and host and not much more. And because we have very special guests with us this morning, we hope you received our communications. The next 2 Sundays, you'll find in your bulletin bios for our very special guests who came here because they found us on the internet while they were on vacation from Vermont. And we made such a connection that Sunday, they ended up eating dinner at the Smith household. And we've been in communication ever since. And we just thought it would be a wonderful thing to bring 2 thoughtful people, a generation younger than me here, to show us how they remember and keep the great traditions of this community and spiritual religious life. I'll let you read about them separately, but the Reverend Theodine is with us. They use they, them pronouns, so when you're speaking at or about them, that's helpful for us all. And Gabriella DeGolia is also with us, and I just am like tingling with excitement for all that's going to happen over the next week here together. Before we begin, we always share a couple of announcements. And I want to point you to our newsletter, which if you don't get it, you can get by going to uccpetaluma.org and signing up for a weekly email, which you can always unsign up for if it doesn't find helpful to you. Next Sunday, the 9th, as I mentioned, we'll be honoring Trans Day of Remembrance and World Kindness Day all at once, and bringing those themes to what's known as somatic practice, a body-centered practice, which you're going to get just a taste of today before we taste the Agape Feast. I was so worried, as pastors sometimes do, that there are 10 of us that are out of town this week. All of the people who know make coffee are gone. So I'm hoping there's coffee out there because I tried to make it and Rachel helped. So we send our traveling mercies with those who are on the road this week and some who are just returning. I have a very exciting next week after that. I hope you'll mark your calendars for November the 16th, 2 Sundays from now, when we will gather here in second hour after our time in sanctuary to be talking about many exciting and important things that are happening, and especially the beginnings of our life and work as the sponsors of the new community center here in Petaluma. And if you haven't met her already, our new founding executive director, Meg Hamill, is with us today. Yeah. It is important that today you not ever once say to her, and here's what I'd like you to do. She has a very full plate, and there will be plenty of opportunity on the 16th for us to all talk about how the church and the community center are going to be related. But today, please just enjoy her as a human amongst us. And finally, we have yet another special guest with us this morning. Cindy Bertram is a part of a community that I was introduced to in town here called Compass Parents. And they support young families with non-binary children and making sure that their experience in the world is one of full love and acceptance. And they've met here a couple of times, and they are next Sunday going to host their very first fundraiser right here, right after church. And we have agreed to partner with them to set up our Friends Sharing Hour in the way they would find helpful, Platinum Rule work here. So that when their fundraiser begins at noon, we'll have already set it up for them, and I encourage us all to come to that. I'm sure Cindy will tell you much more about it. So why don't you just come on up, Cindy, and tell us a little bit about Compass Parents and how we can be helpful to you next Sunday.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for welcoming me. My name is Cindy. I use she and they pronouns. And I'm here on behalf of Compass Parents as a founder of the group and a leader of it. We're a very new organization dedicated to supporting transgender, non-binary, and gender-expansive youth and the families who love them. We began just in February of 2025 with a simple goal to make sure that every trans, non-binary, and gender-expansive child in our community feels connected, supported, and celebrated. Since then, we've reached over 40 families, hosted 9 monthly caregiver support group meetings, and brought kids together through events like nature hikes, pool parties, and playground visits. Every program we run is all about belonging and affirmation. We want to show our kids that they're loved. We've seen the kids create friendships, overcoming feelings of isolation and difference, with deep connections, vibrant community, and laughter. And when we can, with our small budget, we've been hiring trans educators, artists, and other folks to come and work with the kids, showing the kids examples of the trans community's talents, knowledge, and of their ability to thrive. And to that end, on November 9th, in 1 week, you all are hosting us for a Friendsgiving potluck fundraiser, which is our first fundraiser. But to me, I think it'll be more than just a fundraiser. It'll be a celebration of how our larger community can come together for our kids, to really show them values of compassion, inclusion, but also delicious food, new friendships, laughter, and connection. All of this is really to hold our kids with the love and care they deserve. Your presence and your support makes a real difference to these kids. We're asking the community to show up for them, make a financial donation if you can, big or small, contribute food to our potluck, help us move a table or two, and spread the word to build our community and show the trans and gender expansive youth in Petaluma and in Sonoma County and Marin County that they're valued, supported, and loved. And on behalf of Compass Parents, thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you so much for hosting us. And thank you for showing up for the kids and for helping us create a world rooted in connection, gratitude, and joy. Thanks for having me.
And to only add to that opportunity, you all know Joe Perot and Vicki Bottleson. Vicki, if you don't know, is a really gifted singer and is a part of a Middle English folk music group that plays music that sounds like you went into the forest. It's really fabulous. They have agreed to be here next Sunday during church and play at the fundraiser. So, bring your friends. This is going to be just too cool. Let's take time now to fully arrive in sanctuary this morning as we light our church's candles and hear a familiar song with a message that in each one of us is the spark of the divine. Let's begin.
Good morning, friends. Oh, what a blessing to be here and to see so many familiar faces, faces that were familiar to me and my beloved Gabriella from July when we were here. And I just being back in the sun, out of the Vermont cold.
It's really cold there now.
I am from Georgia, so I'm one of those weirdos who gets in a car that's baking in the sun and just like, we're kindred in that way. Thank you so much for this rich welcome and for helping, letting us set this table with you today. It is such an honor, such a joy to welcome you, to invite you further in to this long, life-giving, love-affirming tradition that we call the Agape Feast. And I want to offer Gabriella a moment to express their greetings as well, if they have any.
Yeah, my name's Gabriella Zagolia. As mentioned, we were both here in July, and it's just so good to be back and to see some familiar faces, to see some new faces, especially on this day of the Agape Feast, which is ancient way of doing communion and most beloved to us actually at our church in Vermont. So it's beautiful to see the resonances between the two churches, and we're excited to break bread and drink grape juice and just be in community with you today. And so we were wanting to start off with some sung, like, responsive invitations, so I'll let Theo start us off with that, but just good to be back. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a song that we think fits very well as an invitation into this blessed gathering, and it happens to be my favorite Beatles song, and you'll find it on disc 2 of the White Album, if you're curious. And I think it really speaks to the intimacy that we are longing for, that we're hungering for. And when we find it, how obvious, how self-evident it seems it always has been. And we wonder, how could I have lost this stunning vision of life and reality? How could I have lost such a meaningful experience and rich experience of life? So what we're going to do together is I'm going to sing the part that is not bolded, and I will not be offended if you run out the door hearing me sing. My congregants are used to it, so they're but I am not a trained singer by any stretch. So, but hopefully that will embolden many of you to experience your own voice more confidently. I will sing, "It's been a long, long, long time. How could I ever have lost you?"
And then the invitation is I will sing the bolded part, and then you'll sing it back as much as you're comfortable. I encourage it. And I'll use my hands to sort of guide, like high, lower, high, lower. And all the bolded parts have the same tempo, the same tone, just slightly different words. So it goes, when I loved you, when I loved you. We'll continue on in that vein.
It took a long, long, long time. Now I'm so happy I found you.
How I loved you. Again. How I loved you.
So many tears I was searching. So many tears I was wasting. Now I can see you, be you. How can I ever misplace you. How I want you.
Oh, I love you. Oh, I love you.
You know that I need you.
Oh, I love you. Oh, I love you. Beautiful. Oh my God. Y'all sound great.
We raise the Spirit among us by singing. All voices are welcome, especially if you've been told you don't sing well. This is a really wonderful tune written by the Venerable Ralston Bowles from Western Michigan. We've been singing it as a congregation for many years now. It's become something of a favorite. So I welcome you to rise as you're able and sing together of Little Miracles. We'll start quietly together, and then the band will join us. We all need little miracles. We all need a little faith. We all need little miracles to take us through each day. Sing with me. I still believe in the sun, even when it does not shine. And I still believe in love, even when it's hard to find. 'Cause we all need little miracles. Yes, we all need a little faith. We all need little miracles to take us through each day. Like summer fruits that fall in the warmth of the sun. Where does the wonder go when we are no longer young? 'Cause we all need little miracles. Yes, we all need little faith. We all need little miracles to take us through each day. I still believe in love, even when love is silent. I still believe in peace, even in all this violence. 'Cause we all need little miracles. Yes, we all need a little faith. We all need little miracles to take us through each day. Oh, it never gets old, does it? This morning we'll practice joys and concerns, which is our chance to share stories of our days so that they might be shared by others and help us to remember that none of us carries our laughter or tears, our successes and failures alone. We begin by sharing some of those joys and concerns of a larger world, and then bringing them down to a time of silence and meditation or prayer, as is your practice and custom. If you're new with us today, we take 2 or 3 minutes, which in some communities feels like about a half hour. Trust us that 2 or 3 minutes of silence is always good for the heart and the soul. And when we're done with that, we will invite you then to pass the microphone and share those stories as you might find it helpful to lift them up amongst us. Stories of your own days or those of whom you know. We begin in a moment of pause and reverence for the many cruelties which are not news to any of us in the world right now and in our nation in particular. Our own conference ministers from the UCC were in Washington, D.C. recently, giving their voice in protest to that cruelty, that violence of which we just sang. And I wanted to lift up particularly a minister, I believe of the Presbyterian tradition, George Bautista, who is friend to many of clergy in our area and maybe known to some of you, who was shot point blank in the face with tear gas from a rifle-like gun. He is doing okay. But he was standing completely innocently on the side of the road and was just approached and assaulted as he gave his voice. And I think our hearts and minds could gather in support of all those who risk themselves. We also hear the news that our nation, 350-some million strong, will limit itself to a grand total of 7,500 new immigrants to our nation in 2026. It's an impossibly low number for a nation who has gained whatever greatness it has from the very act of allowing those seeking freedom and liberty. And our voices should lift in support of bringing back the numbers in the 100,000 and more a year that are essential to our lives with our many privileges continuing. The good news we hear in some circles, our sister city of Napa released $1 million of emergency aid from their own city's funds to support those who are likely, though we're not sure still, to lose SNAP benefits. Monday morning when state offices open, we'll see what the courts do. We won't spend more time with that today, but your prayerful hearts for those who will literally be hungry to prove a political point are important. I encourage you, as I have been doing this week, to mention those who will be hungry this week to those people with whom you do business. I was at the U-Haul Center last week, renting a U-Haul, and I mentioned it to the clerk at the U-Haul desk, and they thanked me for remembering and helping them to remember that there will be hungry people in a nation with more than enough food to feed everyone. We celebrate the recent successful surgery of our own Barton Smith, had his shoulder taken apart this week. I got to pick him up at the hospital and watch him on various versions of pain medication, which was really fun. He had a little struggle last night and ended up back needing care at the hospital to get his pain under control, but he's going to be just fine. And if you know Barton at all, he's a million miles an hour, and this is slowing him down a little bit, and it's probably a good spiritual practice. I welcome us all now to take our most attentive seats, to slow and deepen your breath as is helpful, to let go of whatever it is you brought in the room today that does truly need your attention, but to allow that to rest at your side for just a few minutes, to bring to heart and mind those of your beloved and those at great distance that form the stories of your life in love. As you return to this space, I welcome you to bring to heart and mind one who made it possible for you to be here this day. What stories of joy and concern here today? Anne.
I share the joy of my 74-year-old stepbrother qualifying for a liver transplant.
Julie.
Yesterday, a friend and I participated in NAMI walks in Santa Rosa. Mary Francis, who has spoken here before, is the director of NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. It was a beautiful event. I had no idea there was going to be 26 booths there of local groups supporting from medical to the public defender to legal aid. Amazing group, Micah's Hugs, just an amazing amount of people that we spoke with yesterday. My partner of 24 years struggles with the demons in his head, is what he calls them, every day. He doesn't leave the house. He can barely go outside. Mowing the front lawn is a miracle. He waved to a neighbor the other day, and so we had special food for dinner that night in celebration. So just a thank you to the organizations out there in this community who support everybody from youth to senior. There's just some amazing groups, amazing resources, and it's just a friendly reminder that there are people out there to support you in all of this, because obviously the caregivers need support too.
I want to remember Diane Riddell to you all, who continues to heal. And the good news is we're not hearing a lot of news, which they assured us is the best news. Rob has gone back to work, so that's an assurance, too, that things are well enough for that to happen. Other joy and concern. Look at him come. Wow.
Some of you know the major challenges that my extended family have been dealing with. And my daughter, Sarah, Jason's sister, and I have come up with a mantra as we move forward with what is. And the mantra is, act with love, embrace the day's joy while you're working the problems and possibilities. And I'll add to that, thank you for today's joy. This is one of them for me, to be here with my home, another home and spiritual community.
I just want to say, especially since we're having focus on families with young children and their issues, to recall the Reverend Rolf Conrad. I think he had left the world, let alone the community, by the time you got here. But he was a Methodist pastor in town, a gentle soul, and was the first advocate in the community. Would come to the school board, support the human interaction program. Reverend Rolf, here's to you.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for those who've reached out. So I grew up in Jamaica, and everybody appears to be safe, as in there were very few deaths relative to the power of the storm, 185 miles per hour at landfall and 892 millibars pressure, which is ridiculously low. Anything under 950 is a lot. 892 was ridiculous. Western parishes have really been decimated. Churches like these, many old historic churches, 250 years or more, just made of brick to the ground. So, my family and friends appear to be okay. There's going to be a lot of rebuilding, a lot of work to be done. If I have the permission, Pastor Hubbard, I was going to put the AFJ fundraising link in the newsletter next week. American Friends of Jamaica, AFJ, is run by a friend of mine, Wendy Hart, and they do great work, particularly in getting aid when it's there to the right places rather than through bureaucracy. So it's a really powerful organization that helps at times like this. So if you have the ability, no pressure, but if you have the ability to help out Jamaica, that would be great.
Star.
I want to express my joy that my brother, Craig, and also Dorothy's son, is doing better. He has been struggling with mental health issues, and he's coming back to his beautiful self. We're seeing him again, and it's just such a blessing.
I just want to lift up Phyllis Tribble, who
was June's mentor at Andover Newton, a dear friend, and a very strong feminist theologian.
she passed away October 17th.
Rachel.
I'd like to hold in remembrance this week the families of not one but two individuals that were in my first responder family and when I was working. And one was younger than I, and she was just a beautiful soul, 45 years old. Brianna Buchanan Brown passed from cancer last week. And just prior to that, Phil Johnson, who passed, also struggling with cancer, his wife Nancy and their family. So just seems like it's pouring right now.
Mike.
Trevor's here.
That is a joy. I will also lift up the joy of those whose hands and hearts and shopping made this beautiful table. Thank you to all of you who brought things to share, and especially to Jessica and Rachel who came early to set the table and make all of this possible. It seems, given the extraordinary nature of the breadth of sharing this morning, that we take just another moment in quiet to, if it's helpful to you, to remember those voices and names and places you've heard before we move on to tell the stories that we will remember and keep this day. Let's take that time now. May all that is coming to us and has come to us in life and in love be known to us in both its struggle and its joy, as the great miracle of life, the one in a trillion chance to be a piece of the divine upon the earth. Each of you and all those you name, may their stories, both spoken and remain silent in your hearts this day, be a true blessing upon us all. Amen. And so we continue now with the stories of the day.
So today and also next week, we're going to be exploring in depth the notion of remember and keep. And so the passages today are related to the Sabbath, which remember and keep is related to the ancient commandment to remember and keep the Sabbath. So I invite you to just hold that in your consciousness as the passages are read. What does it mean to remember and to keep something within a tradition? So first from Exodus chapter 20, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it whole-making, holy. Mark chapter 2, verses 23 through 28a. And it happened that he passed through the fields of grain on the Sabbath, and his disciples began to pluck ears of grain as they made their way. And the Pharisees said to him, "Look, why do they do what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" And he says to them, "Don't you remember what David did when he was in need and hungry, as well as those with him? How he entered into the house of God in the days of the chief priest Abiathar, and ate the loaves of the bread of presentation, which it is unlawful for any but the priest to eat, and gave them also to those who were with him?" And he says to them, "The Sabbath came about for the sake of humankind, not humankind for the sake of the Sabbath." And last but not least, a quote by David Bentley Hart, an Eastern Orthodox theologian. "Every significant development in the course of a tradition destroys at least as much of the past as it preserves." These are the readings. Thank you.
Oh, boy. All right. I figured it out. There's something I like to do with the community that I pastor, which is just take a few moments after the reading of sacred text, and I want to invite your noticings. What did you observe? What stood out to you? Could be an image, could be a word, could be a turn of phrase. It doesn't have to be profound. Most of the time it isn't, at least not in obvious ways, but Anything at all? Any questions, curiosities? Yeah, Rachel.
Is it on? There we go. Just in the first reading, making it whole making, holy, is the first I've heard of that, so I was curious.
Yeah, I love that too. I've found it helpful in times past when people, holy is just one of those words that it means so much to so many different people, and that it almost means nothing anymore. And it can often be difficult to find a tangible material sort of takeaway from that. Whole making is actually pretty etymologically and otherwise sound understanding of what holy is intended to mean, what makes us whole. Yeah. Thank you for that, Rachel. Any other questions? Any other observations, noticings? Jessica?
I found the David Bentley Hart quote. I don't know about him, but I
Right.
found it really intriguing.
Yeah.
It's something I think I could spend a lot of time thinking about what is a tradition and how do you keep the core of things alive by letting them change. I just feel like there's a lot to think about and unpack there.
Yeah, thank you I'm glad that stood out to you, because often when David Bentley Hart wrote this book, Traditions and Apocalypse, and he really gets into the weeds of this question of what really is tradition as opposed to traditionalism, because there are people who maintain that a thing has to be done for the sake of doing it the way that it's always been done. It has this circular reasoning to it, right? Just you do it because it's been done this way. So he distinguishes that from tradition, and he does it in some brilliant ways. I find him personally just one of the most luminous theologians working today. He rejects that title, by the way. He doesn't consider himself a theologian. I think he's just being demure, but that's my opinion. Anyway, yeah, thank you. I think, what do you feel about what's your curiosity, if you could put a finer point on it?
Well, how one would pick, I think what you just said about traditionalism resonates just with me and my view. Like, I think most things that have just been done for a long time for the sake of doing them are things that are oppressive.
Oh, absolutely.
And so then how do you find the core of things that are valuable and worth preserving, and what would we pick as labeling, well, this is a tradition worth keeping.
Yeah.
And so it's more, I have more curiosity about what that would look like, and I find the idea intriguing than maybe proactive thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one of the resonances with what you just said and what Hart says, one of the sort of integral features, a defining feature of tradition as he understands it, is there's a spontaneity and there's an artfulness to it. It coheres by a logic or a coherence that just it's ineffable. It eludes any kind of linear or logical, rational approach that we could apply to it. So, thank you. I'm glad that stood out.
And I wonder if a piece of that isn't the freedom to ask why we do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. To interrogate why we do what we do.
In so many places where that freedom doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Why is that?
Right.
And then it's like, oh, we don't talk about it. We just do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Eliza.
This is rare. I don't usually talk in church.
Eliza, I'm so pleased.
I don't really do this. Back to David, because we're talking about him. I thought a more materialistic view, which is weird. You know when you go to Target and there's the Bible section?
I've never been to the Target Bible section.
Oh, it's a
treat. Oh my gosh.
Oh, they simplify the Bible, which is so long of a book, and they just, they made a development and they like,
Oh, yeah.
so now it's like 3 words, you know,
Right.
like, oh,
Right.
it's
Right.
whatever. And I think making it pink or making it like false,
Mm-hmm.
ruining it,
Mm-hmm.
taking what they think the words are, takes away from the meaning that everyone's trying to, whatever. So
Yeah.
that was my destroy. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that was, I love that. Thank you, Eliza. Yeah. Oh my God. And so many ways Scripture has been lost in its preservation over the many centuries and the millennia. And mostly, I think, by way of translations, because obviously we know that it's an imperfect science and it's really kind of more art than science sometimes. And so obviously translations sometimes become interpretations of Scripture rather than straight renderings of the meanings, as if that's ever a total possibility. But I digress. Thank you. That was lovely. You should speak out more. Just saying. Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. I jumped the gun.
Hi. I was thinking about Mark, and to me it was talking about, or related to how SNAP is disappearing, is going to disappear, has disappeared today, and that a ballroom is being built at the same time, and where is the loaves of bread going to come for people who are going to starve?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that we need our leaders and our governments to take care of. That's what we do, is we take care of each other. So.
Thank you. That is an exquisitely rich question, and I think a perfect segue into just the few words I've pieced together to share from my heart with you. If you'll permit me to do that now, I'd love to just ask, why is remembering so hard? More to the point, why is remembering how beloved, how worthy of love we are so difficult? And I realize, of course, as a visitor among you, that asking the question in the way that I'm asking it risks I'm taking for granted that we all more or less accept this basic premise that we are beloved, that we are worthy of love. I hope that's okay. I trust it is. It's not as though the memory of our belovedness isn't being sung to us literally in every moment of life. Even in moments of national and communal strife. And I would even go so far as to say, for some of us, collective trauma would be a more appropriate way of capturing that, such as we are moving through right now. The reminders are everywhere that we are beloved, yet it's so tragically easy to miss them. Or at least that has been my experience. And if you are like me and you find yourself slipping into an anxious posture, scanning your surroundings and even the horizon for signs of your worthiness, you may be justifiably grieved to see what's happening and how barren the landscape is. But the danger in seeking and expecting to find our belovedness, our worthiness, reflected in the systems and the structures and the rules and the processes and norms that have so long governed and regimented and delimited our lives and life itself, is that we may come to internalize those failures as our own. The failures of those systems as evidence that we are not worthy of that love. Witness, as we've been talking about, the 42 million low-income folks, including 16 million children, in the wealthiest country in the world, who are now technically stranded in terms of their access to food, or to food assistance, I should say. Held captive by the hubris of certain political leaders and their willingness to subject folks to death-dealing political brinkmanship and gambles of the like. Witness the millions of trans youth whose access to gender-affirming care is being threatened and in many ways already denied by the callousness, the hatred. What word do you even put on this, right? Witness the continued sacrifice of black and brown lives here and abroad. Witness the continued decimation of rights and laws, of values, principles, and traditions that have, however imperfectly, safeguarded so much of what we have come to love and appreciate. If this is where we seek our value, and to be clear, a lot of people do, how could we not? How could we not feel unworthy of love right now? Little wonder so many of us find ourselves disillusioned and collapsing into despair. And that's why I see our passage this morning from Mark specifically as such a gift. How Jesus meets the common sense of so many of his peers with the good sense of the gospel he comes bearing, which is just this bold, unique expression of how faithfully to live the Torah, the law of love. Everyone knew it was wrong. It was common sense. You don't labor on the Sabbath. And then Jesus reminds them of the way Sabbath truly works. It's homemaking. What revelatory, clear-eyed boldness. And I ask, what could possibly have given this itinerant Jewish peasant such boldness under Roman occupation in a world of so much scarcity? What gave this guy this idea that he had divine permission, no less than divine permission, to nourish his body, his wholeness, over and against the common sense that it wasn't right, it was wrong, it was forbidden? That his hunger and that of his companions were worth sating, even, or rather especially, on the Sabbath. I was reminded recently about such bold remembrance by a story. And it was a story like manna from heaven. I remember vividly, I woke up, it was just last week, I was driving to work and listening to story after story, the headlines, oh my word, I can do 10 minutes, that's it. And that morning in particular, I was hearing about how Vermont, where we live, was being threatened, as many states are, to have federal funding cut if they didn't allow adopted parents to discriminate against their trans or non-binary child that they adopt. I was reading about the suicide of a luminous young trans woman, Leah Smith, a student at Middlebury College, who tragically took her life. It was too much. And just at the brink of despair, I hear this story about 1,200 cassette tapes that were saved from going to a dumpster in San Francisco. They were the cassette tapes that belonged to the Metropolitan Community Church Are you familiar with the Metropolitan Community Church? It's basically the queer church. It started in LA first and then made its way up to San Francisco. It was one in San Francisco was one of the most vibrant and one of the earliest iterations of church. And what these 1,200 cassette tapes recorded was from 1987 to 1993, the heights of the AIDS epidemic. And the sermons, you have to listen. It's a podcast. You can listen to it free. It's a 10-part series. I beg of you, listen to it. Because as the co-producer of that show says, this story, even though she herself is not queer, this story involves all of us. It invites all of us to recognize, just as this community did at the height of the AIDS epidemic, their boldness, their belovedness. They knew they were beloved, despite everyone around them telling them, you are not worthy. You are not worthy of being touched. What you've done with your life is why you were here. That's the messages they were receiving. And yet they would come to church and have these revival-esque worship services. They even took on the name, the AIDS Church. They claimed that. They said, yeah, what of it? I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I just, like a grain in the field when we're hungry, like so much that has come down to us, these evidences of our belovedness. They're everywhere. And this is just a reminder. This feast is an abundant reminder of your belovedness, of our belovedness. And I'm so excited to share this with you. And one of the things I take away from all of this, and especially the story of the queer church, when we're attuned to our bodies, we are remembered to our senses. We perceive the world around us with senses that deeply and truly perceive, and in that state, we are not just remembering, we are actually being remembered to that abundant life, that rich and full life that Jesus promises all the time. He's speaking so much about. We are being stitched back together to the covenant with the community around us, with the cosmos, with love, love self. May we hear this morning, as we gather around this table, remember and be remembered to that eternally unfolding belonging. May it be so. I want to invite you at this time to make a small commitment, and I don't want to prejudice you toward a commitment, but one of the things that accompanies the Agape Feast at our church, and I invite you to consider as a small commitment you might make if you were so inclined, is to bless this body by sharing how you commit to blessing your own body in the week ahead. How will you care for yourself? Anybody want to make a commitment? Anybody want to share how you will remember and be made whole?
Going to grab the mic so we can pass it around, but since I'm a California kid, I grew up in San Francisco, and while we're here, I'm going to be eating lots of sourdough, lots of avocados, lots of arugula, and tomatoes. So that's my commitment for this week.
Thank you. Thank you. Love it.
Honoring speaking twice at church.
Nice.
Yep. No, I'm going to drink more water. I don't do that enough.
Yeah.
I sit all day, 9 to 5. Got to do more.
Yeah, right.
More movement.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Eliza.
Well, at this time, I'm aware of how important my own wholeness is to support my whole family.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Betty.
We got to say exercise. A main exercise, and then a whole lot of little exercises through the day.
I will share that I will be soaking up this sun while I am here. Try to keep reserves of it for when I head back to Vermont. A star.
I constantly need the reminder that I truly do need to take care of myself first so that
Yeah,
I can share my loving kindness with others.
absolutely.
And yeah, that used to feel so selfish to me. Selfish.
No.
And it doesn't anymore. It's clear to me that I eat well. I eat 3 weighed and measured meals every day, and that's one of the commitments that I make to myself, that I eat well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I normally don't share twice either. But I realized that I was not sharing because I was afraid of accountability. And I thought that was a good sign that I should share my small commitment, which is to do a little bit of yoga, even if it's only one sun salutation every day this week. And I'll talk to Michael and Eliza at the end of next week and see, did you drink more water and move more, and did you do your exercise? We can form a little club.
Well, I just have to add to that. Embrace the day's joy.
Yeah.
Embrace the day's joy.
Thank you for adding. Yeah. Star, I really appreciated what you said. I actually think that's where I was trying to go, is the indicators of our worthiness, they begin here. They're right here when we start here. Yeah. Taking care of our bodies. Like the disciples and Jesus, their hunger led them to see the invitation in the field to eat and be made whole. I think that's what we can do, is just trust our bodies know and what they need, and address those needs as they come up. Thank you. It's a blessing. Thank you so much for sharing as you have. And at this time, I gather Jason will be inviting the Circle of Generosity.
Well, thank you for the generosity of your reflection, Thew, and all of you who shared, and especially for the generosity of those who kept your small commitments to yourself or haven't discerned them yet. Sometimes it takes time. Mine didn't come right to me this morning. We practice a circle of generosity, what the traditional church, speaking of tradition and traditionalism, would call the offering. And for many, it became a symbol of what the church wanted to take, rather than entering into a circle in which the church asked, what do you need first? And so as we sing today about welcoming everyone to the table for this wonderful song, for which the generosity of Paul and Sherry Eckloff we have to thank for bringing this to us now a couple of years ago. We've taken it, and in the wonderful tradition of remembering and keeping, we have actually rewritten parts of the melody and the words so that they actually sing a song more true than the one that was written in the 70s. It's a more expansive lyric. And so I welcome you as we rise and sing to, if you're close to the baskets here, Michael, Thew, if you would start those around. Don't start them around till we're singing, But when the basket passes, you remember that its first invitation is for you to, A, remember your own small commitment and put it like a prayer or a mantra into the basket. If you literally know something you need or someone else needs and you want to tear off a piece of your not holy bulletin and write on it something that we could do as a community to meet the needs of others, put it in the basket. And then, if it's helpful for you to complete that circle by making an offering at this time or any other, we welcome you to do that as well. Let's rise and sing For Everyone Born, A Place at the Table. For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread, a shelter, a place, a safe place for growing. For everyone born, a star overhead, and love will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, love will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For those we neglect, a place at the table, a voice to be heard, a part in the song, a hand of a child, a hands that are wrinkled. For those we neglect, the right to belong, and love will delight. Let me hear you. When we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace, yes, love will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For those who have bread, a place at the table, a covenant shed, a welcoming space, a rainbow of race, of gender and color. For all who have breath, the chalice of grace, and love will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, love will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For you and for me, a place at the table, the wounded and sore, with need to forgive, in anger and hurt, mindset of mercy. For you and for me, a new way to live, and love will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, love will delight when we are creators of justice and joy.
So, friends, we are approaching the time of feasting. And before we do that, I just want to quickly invite us into an embodied practice of remembrance. Remembrance, as has been mentioned a few times, is often associated with remembering mentally, a cognitive practice of recollecting something. And that is part of the definition, but etymologically speaking, the term remembrance or remember, it actually means to stitch pieces back together. So if you know French, the word membre, member, it actually means a limb. So to remember means to put limbs back in place on the body. So remembrance, when we say do this in remembrance of me, or when we practice remembrance, we're not just speaking of an intellectual process. We're actually speaking of an embodied, you could say somatic, that's a fancy term for embodied practice. And so before we actually practice remembrance by enjoying the food, I'd like to just invite us into a process of remembering our bodies in the vein of what we've been talking about today. And then we'll also practice remembrance so as to feel stitched together as a church community. And you're also, this church today, we're celebrating World Communion today, which is a UCC yearly event that just helps us to remember our connection to the entire world around us, the church and beyond the church as a Christian community. So if it feels good for you, all of this is an invitation. If any of it feels not comfortable or bizarre, just make it your own, or just sit back and enjoy my voice, I guess. But if it feels good, I invite you to find just 5% more comfortable a position with your body in your chair, whatever that looks like for you. If it feels good to close your eyes, you're welcome to. If you'd rather keep them open, just hold a gentle gaze somewhere in front of you. Just allow your consciousness to settle into the body self just a little more deeply. Just allowing the body to organically expand and contract with the cycle of breathing. And just notice, bring a conscious awareness to the parts of your own body that immediately come to mind when you do a gentle scan of it. But then also notice what parts of the body feel a bit left out, either because they don't look the way we want them to, maybe they struggle with pain and we begrudge them for that, or it's just a part of the body that we just don't think of all that much for whatever reason. And just see what it might feel like to invite the parts of our own bodies back into a conscious, embodied awareness of themselves. If it helps, you can imagine some threads pulling back towards the body self. The parts that feel dismembered or left out, you can imagine them perhaps being pulled back as if by a thread towards the center line of you. And if there are any that feel like they want to remain out at a distance, there's no need to force it, but just acknowledge their presence wherever they are. And from this place of feeling the parts of us retethered, pulled back in towards us, now seeing also the threads between each of our individual bodies, threads of breathing and other forms of connection, and just noticing, oh, I am in a space with other bodies. Human bodies, food bodies, particulate bodies. However it comes to consciousness for you, acknowledge those threads connecting your body with other bodies in this body of a space. And then this collective weaving between all of us bring to consciousness its own connection with other similar bodies, including other churches at this time, but also other gathering spaces of other sorts. The ecosystem around this building, other people going about their lives around this building and in the city. And continuing to expand outward, just seeing threads of connection between this space this city, this state, this country, this planet which itself is tethered by a thread to a sun. That sun that is itself tethered by a thread to a black hole at the center of our galaxy. That galaxy tethered by a thread to the center of a cosmos. Remember your body to the bigger body, and the bigger body yet, and the bigger body yet, and the bigger body yet. Do this in remembrance of me. Do this in remembrance of me. Do this in remembrance of me, says a cosmos stitched together by love. And as it feels good, if your eyes are closed, I invite you to open them while maintaining an awareness of that remembrance, that tethering of your body to other bodies, so that we can even more fully and deeply enjoy this process of remembrance known as the Agape Feast. So, friends, for those of you who are not fully familiar with the story of the First Communion, it happened on the night that Jesus was betrayed by a friend in anticipation of his crucifixion. And as Theo often says at our church in Vermont, rather than do the commonsensical thing of running for the hills, away from a traitor, away from what was going to kill him, he decided to instead stitch himself even more closely to his people, to be in community with friends, the traitor among those friends, traitor and friend being one, and break bread and eat food and drink wine with them. And as part of that dinner, he took a piece of bread, a humble piece of bread, nothing terribly special. Thank you. He took it, and in front of them, he said, "This is my body. This humble thing is my body. Broken and dismembered and made into pieces, so as to be remembered and stitched back together by and in and through you. So do this. Break apart in remembrance of me."
After Jesus shared bread with his companions, after they had eaten, he took a cup, and into it he poured wine, fruit of the vine. He told them, "As often as you come together to enjoy this bread and remember me, drink also from this cup. This is no ordinary cup. This is a cup of solidarity. This is a cup of covenant, of camaraderie, of ride or die with you to the end of time. No political or cultural animus or rancor will divide us. Nothing will separate me from you. Drink also from this cup."
as we understand, there we go. As we understand is the tradition here, we'll be passing the basket and then the wine as well. And you're invited to first serve your neighbor and then receive the bread. So as a practice of offering so as to receive. So, start here. Oh, right, yes, and most importantly, if you are able to stand and approach the table, we would love to have folks circle around the feast table. If you cannot stand, that is fine. Either feel free to stay where you are, or if you wish to sit at the chairs immediately surrounding the feast table. We would love to have our bodies stitched together as closely as possible for this feast.
So we're going to come all the way inside the circle, and we will be passing the basket one to the other. So come on in and fill all the space as we can. We have just a little more space to make. We can do it.
Yes. Everyone, yes. One gentle reminder that a special feature of this sharing of the feast is that we serve each other. In the dominant culture around us, there's a lot of self-serve that's pervasive. Let's really take seriously into heart this practice of serving one another. So when we pass the basket to our neighbor, you pass, the neighbor takes it, and then serves.
And it's not a requirement to take from the basket. If you'd just like to be a servant and serve another, that is completely fine as well. This is your choice to be a part of this in any way that serves you and yours this day.
You all are doing fabulously.
I welcome you as the symbol of a bread of life passes and a cup of blessing to take a moment to look around the circle. We didn't have to have bread or juice. The feast at this table is first the people, and then that which makes the people, which is the feast before us. It will literally become us as we take it in. And the calling is to, from that, make the gracious and extraordinary move to become a servant. That because I am lucky enough to have just enough, I choose to say that it is more than enough, and thus I have something to give you.
Just allowing the embodied experience of taking of a broken thing and allowing it to enter us so as to help us be remembered into wholeness, and that we ourselves become conduits of a restitching together of the world by taking of the broken pieces, becoming whole by also making what was broken whole.
So now is the time in which we, if we choose, take a step forward, take from the table, enjoy and eat. We're going to go get some little plates too, which I don't see in here. Oh, look at, they're right over there. And coffee. and our musicians, and let us be grateful for our musicians in this moment. Thank you. Yeah. You make it so much richer for us all. And in this, they will transition into the wonderful tune you all know when we pass the peace. But let us take the time to take from the table, connect with one another, share, embrace the day's joy. Yeah. Let's celebrate right here now. Thanks for being with us, friends. Go in peace.